Hello, good evening, everybody. I'm Komal Jain and I'm a part of Team Rings. Um, this is our second Rings Roundtable overall. We had it on 28th of June at IMC Churchgate, where we spoke about 7 dimensions of health. And all of our speakers were teenagers, bringing in such a rich and insightful discussion that day. We spoke about spiritual health, financial health, sexual health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, and whatnot. The discussion truly impacted all of us present there. Since then, we've been doing many roundtables targeting each dimension of health. So this one is on mental health. We've already done physical health, sexual health, and financial health, making this our fourth one. Um, we have 3 panelists with us today for the mini roundtable. Um, we have Miss Namrata Jain. Quickly introducing her, she's the founder of Out Aloud Wellness. She's a psychologist and wellness coach, TEDx speaker, and a psychospiritual coach as well. With 12 plus years of experience, she integrates breathwork, mindfulness, and holistic healing to make mental health accessible and relatable. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
So much, Komal. It's a pleasure being here.
Next up, our second expert is Dr. Havavi Bhagwagar, who is a clinical psychologist, psychotherapist, and founder of Manashni. I hope I pronounced that correctly. With 25 plus years of rich experience in trauma recovery, anxiety, and mood disorders, she's also a PhD scholar from TIS, Mumbai, and a strong advocate for mental health advocacy. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you
Um,
for having me on this platform.
so glad to have you here. We have our teen expert who was also on the main round table on 28th of June, Yash Jain, who is a dynamic 14-year-old entrepreneur and internationally certified trainer who has transformed the lives of over 10,000 young minds. As India's youngest life coach and business consultant, Yash combines entrepreneurship, experiential training, and life coaching to inspire greatness. Welcome, Yash. We're so glad to have you here today.
It's my pleasure.
So, as you all already know, today's topic is mental health. So, diving into the questions, Namrata ma'am, I'd like to start with you. Um, in your work and in your practice over the years, how do you see practices like mindfulness or breath work changing the way that young people relate to stress and emotions?
So, I personally always look at emotions as emotions, which is energy in motion. And so, emotions is one thing which constantly keeps transforming. When it comes to teenagers, with various exposure that we have in the current times, there is so much that you're experiencing at a very young age. I think emotions is something any which ways we start at a very young age, but the awareness has started building it much more earlier for the youngsters. And and the beautiful part is that even schools have now started talking so much more about emotions, making children so much more aware of what they're experiencing and how and why what is happening, that awareness is so much more worth when it comes to personal practice and when children come for therapy. Um, and especially when teenagers with, who are like 13, 14, 15 years old, when they come in, the kind of experiences they are going through currently is far different than probably what, how we or me would have gone through when we were younger. And so there are times when now not everything can be worked on cognitively. And so mindfulness and breath work plays a very, very important role for them because that goes slightly beyond the cognitive work. That's where we combine cognitive work along with breath work and mindfulness. That awareness that you're building, because at the end of the day, it's about training your mind to be able to become aware and then be able to take actions accordingly. Starting from a very small, basic activity of mindfulness to then them becoming more and more aware at a deeper level is where I believe that, breath work has been very, very powerful. Again, not intense breath work for the youth, but just basic to start with is really, really powerful.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Ayush, sorry, Yash. Oh, we also have Ayush here. Ayush, we're unable to see you. If you could turn on your camera, I'll introduce you.
Uh, yes, ma'am. 1 second.
No worries. Great. So pausing the discussion a little bit and quickly introducing Ayush, our second teen speaker for the day. Ayush Prasad is a bright grade 7 student from Oak Ridge International School, Hyderabad, with a deep passion for STEM, humanities, and vexillology. From advanced math to robotics to public speaking and debate wins, Ayush is a young polymath making his mark. Welcome, Ayush. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you, ma'am. Also, I'm happy to say that since the last session we had in Mumbai, I'm now in grade 8.
Okay, so Ayush Prasad is a grade 8 student. Welcome, Ayush. So, as Namrata ma'am just pointed out about breath work and starting with a little bit of mindfulness, my next question goes to you, Yash. Um, when you see that you've coached multiple young minds, right? What mental health challenges do you see most often in your peers, and where is the struggle? What is the gap when it comes to knowing that I'm struggling with something, or knowing that perhaps I should start with a small little habit, but I'm unable to?
So, the major challenges I personally feel comes in, the emotional validation, right? There is a lot of awareness today compared to previous generations, but still there is a point which needs working. I personally feel that even today, children don't get the emotional validation or their emotions which needs to be fulfilled. The thing which needs to be fulfilled at home is, not happening, and due to that, it takes a load on their mental health. And then that's when they go out, to find out that emotional validation. So I feel this is one very major this thing which I've seen in my peers. And yeah, so speaking about the struggle, I think
Yash, I think
hello.
yes, audible.
Yes. So this is one challenge, and apart from it, the easy access to a lot of things, right? Today, social media is a big, big way for our information, and it's not censored. So a lot of information or a lot of this thing does happen. So I think that's a concern as well for today's this thing.
I hear you. I hear you. So the social media exposure and the gap, I absolutely hear you. Dr. Habobi, I'd like you to shed a little bit light when it comes to the experience that you've had, to a more deeper level. What do you feel are some early warning signs when it comes to teenagers these days, especially when it comes to in alignment with the use of social media, them burning out so quickly and being so anxious most of the time? Uh, what is it that teenagers themselves should look out for? And what is something that the peers around them or the adults around them can support them with?
Times are changing really quickly, like Namrata said. I think the stressors that I would see in my son, who's now 20, I couldn't imagine myself seeing when I was age 20 and the stressors I see, the young adults or the teenagers coming in to my clinic are, I would think, oh gosh, at 20, I don't think I had an idea of any of this existing or even thought that deeply about life or wrote that deeply about life the way I see so many of this age group right on social media. Early warning signs, though, I would say have not changed because humans and their emotions don't change in that sense. The external social world changes. So those warning signs would have been present for a very long time before it reaches out to be a cry for help or some crisis. And the children I see in my clinic will usually come in with a crisis. Typically at 10th or 12th grade is when it blows up into a crisis that becomes of proportion that a parent will recognize or the school system will recognize. Peers often do recognize those early warning signs, but often there is so much of loyalty that is there in that peer group that it's not, those signs are not shared with any adult. So I would say those first early warning signs would typically be the anger, irritation, withdrawal, a change in the person or the teenager's typical characteristic way of behaving, which is again very tricky because they are changing. Almost every month you're going to see a teenager change, right? You're going to see a child change. But typically things that are characteristic of them, an outgoing child, a kind child, a generous child, is suddenly turning out to be the opposite or is doing the opposite. Early warning signs will also come in terms of a child asking about death or dying or about deeper things, darker things about life, getting attracted to TV shows that have dark content, seeming to be very isolated, not sharing anything related to emotions. These are all present sometimes way before a crisis happens, way before the child gets into drugs or the child has a failure in school or there is some other calamity that strikes their life, like self-harm. So these early warning signs are definitely there. Are they picked up? Um, Sadly not. Sadly not. Until it becomes something which is very visible, like grades, until it becomes something very visible, like cuts on the arms or legs, and something that shows out there. So I really wish when a child comes to me with these visible signs, I always am curious as to when did it start, and more than 80 or 90% of the time the answer will be a year or two ago, but they either never spoke about it or nobody paid attention or no one caught it, or they said multiple times, we even wrote about it on social media, but nobody seemed to pay attention. People laughed it off, or people just gave us empty reassurance. So if we listen and we try to read between the lines, everyone is saying a very painful story or talking a very painful story.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, the warning signs might be there, but it's not everybody might actually catch on to that as quickly or as accurately as possible. Ayush, that leads me to my next question, which is directed at you. Um, when it comes to teenagers, most of them, a lot of their day actually is spent in either school or their classes, or with their friends. What kind of mental health support do you wish schools and perhaps junior colleges offer to students, offer to the teenagers of your age?
Well, I'm relatively young as far as teenagers go, so I'm maybe not experienced to talk about junior colleges. About the school and the activities I've been, I feel that yes, schools are a main focus of people's lives as they're in this age, and it's often hard to tell in a school where a fun activity might turn into bullying, might turn into what in higher years you may call ragging, might turn into pure indiscipline. It's hard to tell. And for the students of this grade, it's hard to cultivate such a disciplinary culture. And of course, there are counselors, There are people who try to deal with emotions, but I feel that counselors don't really do that well. I'm not sure if it's entirely the fault of the counselors or the fault of the students or the fault of the environment, but I've noticed that the children in my class, whenever a counselor tries to outreach, come to the class, discuss things about mental health, they often lack that connection. Maybe I would ascribe some portion of that to the fact that counselors don't fully understand how to talk about mental health, which in a way is what platforms like this are meant to resolve, to help us talk about topics like this. Oftentimes, students might see talking to the counselor, talking to the whole class as a boring activity that detracts from the rest of the fun we're supposed to be having. But I feel that it is important to understand that the counselor is there for you, has your back, is willing to discuss any private things you have, and remove the stigma that would be there about talking to a counselor. I remember lots of people back in the conference in Mumbai talking about the stigma related to talking to a counselor. I've seen fragments of that in my grade also. And I feel that if we could remove that stigma, make talking to a counselor and getting support a normal activity, that would much improve the mental health situation of students.
Absolutely hear you. Yes, stigma must be addressed. That again makes me want to ask you, Namrata ma'am, that what is one perhaps small habit that you feel, as be it like a seventh standard child, or be it a 10th standard child, or be it like a first year, junior college student, what is that one simple habit that perhaps teenagers can start doing to protect their mental well-being?
So I would, this is something that I personally started at a very young age. I think the first thing when we wake up in the morning, we have gotten so addicted to our phones that the first thing that you do is you check your phone. And currently, I think students from probably third grade, fourth grade, sometimes younger, sometimes slightly older, everybody has a phone. And that habit of not checking the phone as the first thing is something that we need to really work towards eliminating. And rather, replacing that with just 10 to 15 minutes of just starting your day with doing nothing, I think is very essential, because doing nothing is the most toughest thing for anybody to do in today's times. We're constantly have some stimulation around us. And if there's one habit that we really would want from a very young age for anybody to inculcate till whatever age you are, I think the start of the day, if 10 minutes, you could just be at your window, maximum have a glass of water with you, no technology, no talking to anybody, and just being in that moment is a brilliant habit to inculcate.
Absolutely, doing nothing. Tough for sure, but I think, like you said, it's very, very impactful. Might just change how your day might pan out.
It
Right? Because
makes a huge difference. And I've seen myself when it was me using my phone as the first thing to do, and then how it changed for me when I started practicing this on a regular basis. And probably every client who comes in for psychotherapy, that's one of the first things that I ask them to start doing. And it shows so much of change over time. Of course, it needs to be consistently done, where it gives them time to reflect on a lot of things, to start the day with, or sometimes just be, you need to slow down sometimes to be able to have a high functioning day as well. So that little bit, if we could start doing in the mornings, it will make a huge difference.
absolutely, absolutely. I agree. And, so as adults, we understand the importance, the impact of these things. And these days teenagers are also really, understanding, be it via social media, be it via whatever resources. They are learning about mental health. They're understanding that, okay, mental health is important. Uh, right? That makes me ask you, Ayush, again, that as somebody who's involved in so many things, the subjects that you want to study, all the things that you're doing at such a young age, how do you balance the academic pressure, your personal academic pursuits and interests, and your mental health?
Well, I feel that you mentioned those three things specifically. Mental health should come with the territory when you're learning things about your personal academic interests. If your personal interest that you love doing is really conflicting with your mental health, then I feel that it's time to consider, am I really doing this because I like doing it or because you have been forced by outside expectations to do it? So I feel that if you are really personally interested in something, whatever it is, that's in fact a good strategy to have a better mental health hobbies. I'm pretty sure any of the adults here who are more trained in psychotherapy could elaborate on that, but it's just a general fact that hobbies and a real personal interest can really help you. About how the academics in school has to be balanced with your mental health. I feel that it's something that becomes harder each year for these teenagers, leads to much more stress, and it's especially hard considering that the device is right there and you could just ignore and start passing the time for a long bit and just watch YouTube and ignore everything. So catching up with these personal academic stresses, with these academic stresses from the school, is becoming really hard. But I feel that a good technique is to just understand and plan to not just consider homework as something that your teacher is making you do. Because if you treat it like that, as you said, it's just an outside influence that will harm you. If you treat homework as I have to understand this to get a better idea of the concept so that I do better in my exams, then I feel it becomes more enjoyable and interesting. You get an internal pressure to understand it properly and to do it rather than an external pressure to just get done with it, because you need some pressure, some guiding light to do work. But if it's internal and you want to do it, then I feel it come out better.
I hear you. I hear you, Ayush. Um, Dr. Havavi, that my next question goes to you. Um, when it comes to, we've spoken so much about stigma, we've spoken so much about conversations around mental health. And as the teens also very rightly mentioned, there is stigma around just going to a counselor and talking, even if the resources are available in school. Um, how do you feel that we can make conversations around therapy and professional help, especially when it comes to teenagers, less stigmatized when it comes to Indian families, when it comes to schools, when it comes to between peers?
I think Ayush has a really important point there that when counselors come into the class to talk, most of the time it's looked at as possibly another lecture. Um, I don't think the depth of the material is really looked at, nor is perhaps a connection formed between the person doing the talk and the children receiving it because it's in a classroom setup. I feel peers can do a lot. So the education can start from peers to peers itself. And it can start by incorporating some amount of, mental health talks they that become a part of the curriculum. So let's say instead of a talk on biology or a chapter on biology relating something to mental health, um, assignments can be given with information about mental health in mind, and then those can be disseminated by students to students. Cultural programs, all of these can have mental health themes with them. So there's a lot that the college campus has, is vibrant and full of color, and much information, if it is disseminated from the same age group, will have a better impact. I think for that matter, I remember going to a college once for a completely different, I was called for some by the law portion of that college. But as I was going in, I remember seeing this Nukkad Natak being conducted in the college with a mental health theme. I was late for my lecture there. I remember it was a moot court that I had to attend. I was doing it for the first time and I was anxious, but I still stood. And that Nukkad Natak caught my attention because it was all about women and in their empowerment and mental health, and the amount of students gathered was to see. Okay, there was a small amount, there was just this much space that was there, but so many students in concentric circles, up the stairs, down, just watching that and soaking in that material. That's just, to me, one type of way in which information can be given out. Platforms are plenty, but when it comes to teenagers, it has to be more creative. When it comes to children, the methods of disseminating information have to be creative. I also have seen how many of the kids who come to me after they start getting better, they in some way become advocates for mental health. So they're writing books on it, or they're drawing color cartoons and pictographics or infographics on it. I think these are very, very impactful. Peer to peer, possibly those with mental health conditions educating others and identifying others can be more powerful than this coming from, say, authority, so to speak. So I'd say that's one really powerful medium. If colleges and schools tap into it, they don't need any external experts. They have lived experience right there on their campuses. And they have students who have, by osmosis or by just being around others who've had mental health issues, understand about them. So that in itself can be propagating of a message.
Absolutely. I think it's very powerful what you said. Um, so for the closing question of today, Yash, I would like to ask you, what is something that you wish, you know, what is something that you wish you could change, or teenagers as a whole, the age group, could change about how society sees or treats teen mental health, and why so?
Okay, so I personally feel that again, the overall taboo related to teen mental health, that okay, this is nothing, just focus on your studies, and that should be changed. And I personally feel that we should get enough room, again coming to my previous point, to get that emotional validation within the family so that we don't have to go out. So as a teenager myself, and as a person working with teenagers day and night, I personally feel that if there is enough room given to the child, right, discipline is very important, right, and parenting is also very important, but that one small part of the parent where they give the room to their child, I think that would definitely help. And we as teenagers, whatever we have, we do share it with our friends. Why? Because we know they are not gonna judge us, or they're not gonna taunt us for that, right? But today a lot of parents still do. I'm lucky enough that I can share things with my mom. My mom has given me that room. So that's something which I personally feel that if it gets changed, there are a lot of challenges which will get resolved automatically. And that's the best possible way it can happen, because in any other solution, I personally feel, right from counselors to, sharing it with peers, some or the other flaws do exist. But if this happens, I don't think there is any flaw in this. That could be a perfect solution for all the kids out there.
I hear you. So we're ending today's mini roundtable with a perfect solution at our hands, at our dispense, something that we certainly need to propagate towards, not just at our individual ends, but wherever and whenever we can support others as well. we've discussed so many brilliant and insightful points today, not just from the experts, but also from the teams. Um, of course, we've heard like a blend and a mix of what are the approaches, what at what levels, and how can we address teen mental health. Also, hearing from the teenagers who've understood that what is it that they really want, what is it that would actually support them, what are their challenges, what are their roadblocks, and what are their ways of managing it already. Um, so I truly believe that this has been a great discussion, and I'm so happy to be moderating this as well. Um, a very, very big thank you to all our panelists, both our experts, both our teenagers, for taking our time for this, for being a part of our mini roundtable. This will help us raise reports and support the white paper that we're planning to raise with our roundtable that happened on 28th of June. Your continued support is what helps us keep spreading awareness, keep doing these roundtables, keep hearing from you all, and spreading a more nuanced and more credible understanding of all of these topics. So thank you so much once again from my end as well as from the end of Team RINS. We're very glad to host you today. And thank you to everybody watching. I genuinely hope you gained something out of it because I definitely did. And thank you once again. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, Namrata, Yash, and Ayush. Thank you, Komal.